Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Pab and today we'll be taking a look at the brand new Asmodai model from the Dark Angels. Only thing is, we won't be needing the instructions. Ever since I first saw this kit, I wanted to try and kitbash it into something that would fit my Black Templars. So today I'm really happy to share this project with all of you. We start by snipping and cleaning all the pieces from the kit so we can take a good look at what we've got and what we can do with them. First off, I don't want all these spikes. I'm going for a more medieval, cleaner look on the armor. From my bits box, I found this axe and decided to convert Asmodai's Dark Angel's scepter into a weapon. I know he already comes with a really cool sword, but we'll get to that later. To make the axe sturdier, I drilled a couple of holes and fixed it in place with a small metal pin made from a paper clip. Using some citadel glue, I secured everything, letting the plastic melt around the metal frame. Next step is removing the Dark Angel's heraldry. This part is tricky. You have to be careful not to chip or cut into other details. Using a hobby knife and some cutters, patiently scrape away the parts you don't want. You can always clean it later. Once the heraldry is gone, it's just about smoothing out the surface by scraping small bits of plastic until it's flat again. Try to follow the folds of the cloth as best as you can. To fill the empty space, I added a Black Templar purity seal, cutting off the parchment and carefully gluing the cross onto the chest like a jewel. Now it's time to assemble the model and see how it's coming together. As I said before, Asmodai already comes with a sword, so now it looks like he's carrying two weapons. But no worries, I fixed that by swapping the hand joint with an artifact that I think looks even cooler and gives the model a spookier vibe. He also has an axe hanging at his side, but I removed it and replaced it with a book relic instead. It gives off some great chaplain energy. For smaller details like another Dark Angel symbol, I didn't just want to cover it with green stuff. Instead, I added some purity seals, as if this guy didn't have enough already. For the backpack, I stuck with the one from the kit. You could use the standard thrusters, but I think the version with flowing incense looks way better. At this point the model already looks amazing, but we can push it even further with paint. I primed the model in Chaos Black, then added a layer of Zundry Dust spray, focusing more on the robes. For the backpack I did the same things, but instead I sprayed White Scar. Then I dry brushed the cloth with a Wraithbone for highlights. Shaded it with some Seraphim Sepia, and blended everything with a soft dry brush of Zundry Dust. For the armor I used Black Legion Contrast. This keeps the warm tones from the base coat while darkening the recesses with black tones. I've already made a video on how I usually paint my Black Templars. If you've seen it, you'll notice I'm trying a slightly different technique here. If you haven't, I'll leave it linked at the top. For the axe handle, I painted it red, like most of my Templar's weapons. For the leather, I use Gargak Sewers for its darker tone. and a quick dry brush of Zandri dust adds a very nice weathered effect to the leather. Metallics are pretty straightforward. Lead belchers for chains and blades, and Sycorax bronze for details and relics. For the skull artifact and purity seals, I started with Wraithbone. Instead of the usual red wax, I tried Magus Purple Contrast, and I loved the results. I then used a little bit of watered down Seraphim Sepia on the parchments, and Skeleton Horde contrast on the skull. To highlight the armor, I used Dark Reaper. For this model, I wanted a darker look, so I skipped painting the eyes on the helmet, and instead I left them in shadow using Black Legion contrast. I then shade the metals using everyone's favorites, which are Nuln Oil and Agrex Earthshade. Now, the axe, I wasn't really happy with how it looked, so I tried something new for the first time, and I'm very happy to show you how it worked. I started by covering the axe with matte white. Then I worked outwards with Flash Kits Yellow. Using Yandan Yellow contrast, I glazed warmer tones around the edges of the axe. Then I mixed some Evil Sun Scarlet with some Flash Kits to create an orange glow along the blade and edges, keeping the center bright. To enhance the brightness, I sometimes added watered down white into the recesses. Then I started deepening the outer edges with Mephiston Red. Finally, I added object source lighting from the blade. Don't worry if you cover the rest of the color, that's how light works. And then I chipped the edges with Abaddon Black. With a very small paintbrush and just about a little bit of water, we can work our way to some free hands on the purity seals. You can either do some writings, heraldries, or even drawings if you're brave enough. With some Stormhost silver, I then highlighted all the metallics and finally finished off this first part of the model. We are not done yet though. We still need to work on the backpack, and again, we highlight all the edges with some Dark Reaper. Using Lit Belcher, we work on the metallics, and with Sycorax Bronze on all the details and heraldries, shading them off like we did on the rest of the model, with Null Oil and Agrax Earthshade. For the smoke, I start by heavily dry brushing some Administratum Grey on all the clouds. Once it's all dry, I begin to shade with some Null Oil, sliding the shade to the bottom, making sure it's lighter from the top. Using some Basilicanum Grey contrast, we work towards the top, making sure the darker tones stay on the bottom and glaze upwards. Finally, we can fix everything by dry brushing some more Administratum Grey, but this time making sure we only get into the most exposed parts of the smoke. Before getting to the base, I want to do some dirt and chipping effects. By simply using some watered down Rhinox hide, we can get a rusty look in some recesses of the armor. While for the chipping and dirty effect, using a sponge will create some slight patches that look perfect at this scale. What you see me using here is simply a piece of kitchen sponge stuck into a brush lid. You can make this very easily at home. We are almost done. After covering the base in Stirland mud, I sprayed it in dark grey and dry brushed some Administratum Grey over it. I made a mistake here and the brush was still wet, but I decided to keep going. I then used some Null Oil to recover some shading that I had lost due to the wet dry brush, and it still worked well. I was very tired at this point of the video. I had been working on this for some days now, and when I dry brushed the stones, I forgot to clean this brush from some pigment from a previous work. So the result isn't exactly what you expect from some Administratum Grey. I simply fixed it later off camera. But as you can see, it's still working, and to finish off the details, I went with Lit Belchers for the chains and Sycorax Bronze for all the other details, shading them with only Agrax Earthshade this time. My Black Templar bases aren't done without some snow, so I went on and threw some patches here and there. Before wrapping up, I just want to thank you all for the support. The channel is slowly growing and it means a lot to see so many of you interacting and keeping it alive. If it's your first time here, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps. As always, thank you so much friends, I'm really enjoying this journey. See you next time.